How's it going, folks? Dave Brown here with the New Populist. Thank you again for joining me. Now, it looks like relations between the United States and China will not improve anytime soon. The Chinese just rejected an offer for the Secretary of Defense of the United States, Lloyd Austin, and his Chinese counterpart to meet in Singapore. And why do the Chinese not want to meet? Well, because back in March, the United States placed sanctions on the Chinese defense minister over his dealings with Russia because, of course, China gets some of their technology, military technology, from Russia. So we sanctioned the guy back in March. And of course, remember too, we also shot down the Chinese spy balloon, which was ridiculous theater, having getting a fighter out there and blasting a missile at it to shoot it down, this balloon. So those two reasons together, but mainly the sanctions is why the Chinese are simply saying no, thank you, we don't want to talk. And I can't blame them because it's something we do in the U.S. where we we have this double standard where we're going to sanction your guy, but then say, hey, why don't you come over and meet up? And it's condescending and it's insulting. And the Chinese are saying we're not going to play this game. Either you treat us with respect and remove these sanctions, and we meet like equals, or we're not going to meet at all. And they may have also learned watching Putin in Russia. One thing that Putin said was that all the times that he was trying to talk with the EU and the United States over the last 8 years to resolve this issue with Ukraine and Donbass, he said was in vain. There was no true intention by the West to have an honest negotiation. And there, as they said, Angela Merkel and others, they were just buying time so the Ukrainians could build up their military to NATO standard and go to war against Donbass and Russia. So the Chinese are looking at that, looking at Putin, going, "We're not going to waste our time talking to people who are going to, talk down to us, who are just treating us with disrespect. When you're ready to be fair, ready to be adults, we'll sit down and talk to you. Until then, buzz off." And I can't blame them. And what's funny about this situation with China, the situation with Russia, is that back in 2020, we were told that when Biden came into power, the adults were going to be back in charge because Trump, oh, he's abrasive, he's loud and rude, and he can't be a good diplomat and talk to other countries. We need somebody like a Biden who's mature to talk with our allies and our adversaries to make a safer world, and so we don't have this threat of nuclear destruction that Donald Trump's going to bring about. Yet, 3 years into his presidency, our relations with all these countries that are threatening to us because they have, well, nuclear arsenals is much worse than it was under Trump. Under Trump, he wanted to talk to Putin. He says, why is it such a bad idea that the United States and Russia get along? Of course, what he didn't realize was the neocons in D.C. have been planning for a very long time to start a war with Russia using Ukraine as a proxy because they want to get Putin out of power. Under Trump, he met with Xi Jinping. They had a relationship that was cordial, and Trump said a lot of tough things about trade and everything, but he would sit down with Xi Jinping, and he went over to North Korea, met with Kim Jong Un, and so he, despite what he said, despite his rhetoric, Trump went around the world and actually did make some friends, and we had a relatively, of course, there were wars going on in some places, but a relatively peaceful 4 years under Trump. And then Biden gets into office. And now we have this proxy war in Ukraine. We got nuclear weapons being moved into Belarus. The Chinese defense minister won't talk to ours. The Saudis, well, they're now talking to the Iranians again because the Chinese brokered a deal. The Syrian war has failed. Bashar al-Assad, he's still in power despite what the U.S. wanted to do. And he's back talking with his colleagues in the Middle East. So, Are the adults back in the room right now in the White House? Is the U.S. standing in the world, has it improved? I would argue not. And I guess the only people who actually work with us are the Europeans and the Australians and the Canadians. And when you look at the Europeans, you have Olaf Scholz, the German chancellor. He was embarrassed by Biden back last year when Biden said he would end Nord Stream 2 if he needed to, and he said it right in front of right in front of Olaf Scholz, like he was a little like a little buddy there, like he in a disrespectful way. We're going to blow up this joint Russian German infrastructure, or well, we didn't say blow up. He's going to end it. And he didn't even think to turn to his counterpart standing right next to him and go, of course, with their permission, and Schultz is standing there looking like an idiot. And then we have, France. We have Macron. Macron is an interesting figure. That he's a barker. He likes to talk big, and he said a few things about France, taking a more independent role from the United States and being more prominent in the EU and working with China. And what did he get for that? He got attacked by the United States for stepping out of line. But so you can see he wants to be a little more independent, but he's just like Schultz. All these European leaders, they just eventually do what the United States says for the most part. So except for these people in Europe who do what we say because we control them economically and militarily, people are not getting along with the U.S. Relations have not improved. And this is with, allegedly, the adults back in charge. So I hope this thing between the United States and China gets ironed out. I'm not too optimistic because, as we know, when this thing with Russia and Ukraine winds down, or even before it winds down, we know the attention is being shifted to the Pacific and Taiwan, and they're going to start stirring that pot up and creating more havoc there. So that's what you get when you have neoconservatives in power in your government. Constant stress, constant conflict and wars and provocations. It's funny, one of the things we always say here in the United States, this person over here, this country, China, Russia, they're another act of aggression. Act of aggression. Never mind the United States invading Afghanistan and Iraq and destabilizing Libya and funding a civil war in Syria. Never mind that. It's the other countries who are always guilty of acts of aggression. So hopefully in 2024 we actually get an adult back in the room. Trump, maybe RFK, anyone but Biden, because despite what they say, the world is a much more unsafe place with Biden in office, and that is a threat to the entire planet, existential threat. Nuclear war has never been closer, so hopefully the leadership changes soon so we don't get incinerated in a future nuclear war. That's it for now. If you are new to my channel, please like and subscribe. I'll see you next time.